KindaSound Radio. We're tuning in for change.
Hey, happy Friday. It's the KindaSound Astrology Update with me, Stella Grace. Every Friday at 10 a.m, we're talking about the current update for the astrology for the week ahead, key influences, key dates of the main planetary influences. So we're going to touch on that shortly and have a couple of songs as well throughout. And also we're going to touch on today's topic in a little bit more depth, which is Mercury. So I'm excited to get into that. We are here every Friday, as I said, and replayed the following day, Saturday at the same time at 10, obviously available to listen via www.kindasound.org. Also available as a podcast from the following Tuesday after the show on Apple, Spotify, and again on the KindaSound website via the /podcasts there. So you can always catch up on your astrology those ways. So we can't not start. We've got Mercury is the main feels of today, actually. And so we are well into the throes now of Mercury retrograde, but not to fear. So Mercury retrograde gets a pretty bad rap, actually, for tech delays, tech issues, travel delays, plans may be going a little bit awry. And yes, we can experience potentially, not always, but we can potentially experience some of those things. But what Mercury retrograde, and when any of the planets go into retrograde, what that's inviting us to do is to have some more introspection time. It's really about review, reconsider, perhaps replanning or adding some further consideration into current plans. And often the universe works in a really clever way that can be quite frustrating in the initial period. But actually, what we're often invited to do is reconsider something that might be for our highest good. For example, if something's not working out, maybe we need to take a bit of a step back. We might need to take a look within, because that's a really key thing for Mercury retrograde. It's also a super fitting time for wintering. So here in the Southern Hemisphere, we are experiencing midwinter, and obviously it's a time of slowing down, and that's very fitting. So Mercury retrogrades happen 3 times a year. So it's kind of, coincidence, but not coincidence that we've got a retrograde happening now where it's a time of slowing down, which is absolutely organically in tune with the cycle of midwinter and how the body and we're not really designed to be racing around right now. It's a real wintering thing, and Mercury retrograde is such a great reflection of that, because as I was saying, it's a time for revision, it's a time for inner work, a time for looking within. And what an amazing time, actually, to review your year, review your 2023. So what didn't perhaps work as well as you'd like? What needs a bit of closure before you can bring in the new for 2024? What things, do you want to maybe clear out altogether? Because what we have, again, really fascinating timing this year, because it doesn't always work this way, is we have Mercury retrograde closing, i.e. stationing direct again, Mercury moving forwards again on the 1st. So over the period of January the 1st and the 2nd, we've got this amazing time for new creations, new plans. It would be a great time for New Year's resolutions. And actually, that's not always the case astrology-wise. Organically, astrology-wise, in terms of the seasonal wheel of the year, spring equinox at the end of March is an amazing time for the new creations, fresh energy. But obviously, our calendar year works very differently. In this case, however, we have got an amazing time for launches, for creating new things, for starting new good habits. We've actually really got that aligned for an unusual change on over the January the 1st and January 2nd. So it's a really lovely time, actually, this Mercury retrograde, not to fear, but to go within as I say, review, take any action, tie up loose ends. It's a really great energy for tying up loose ends or closure or revisiting any areas of healing, any areas of things that you might want to just put a bit of a fresh layer of wisdom upon. We can see incidences such as exes popping back up into our lives, again, potentially. And if so, the universe doesn't do these things to torment us. It can sometimes feel like that in certain instances, but the universe is really working for us all the time. And so if you're presented with any issues, delays, exes, something from the past being revisited, something coming up, it's for another look at it. What wisdom can you share with this situation for yourself and your growth if it's coming up again? What is there that perhaps is giving you a fresh look with wiser eyes this time upon it? Because, as I said, Mercury retrograde is a real fascinating time for more of the inner processes rather than the outer. So if things are showing up in your external world for, feelings of the past or for review, what else can you be bringing it? What can you take from it now for your growth path ahead and ready for that lovely fresh energy on January the 1st and 2nd? It's a great time also for not really signing contracts. It's a great time for reconsidering or really revising the details. So again, I'm not into, and I don't advocate the fear-based elements of astrology. I think there's a much deeper level than looking at, as we were saying, those surface level difficulties, and not to fear, because yes, while it may not be the best time to rush into something, for sure, we're not looking at a time here with the midwinter and with Mercury retrograde for rushing into anything. And actually, so what Mercury retrograde at this time would suggest in terms of, contracts or agreements, for example, because this can be something that can be feared or not advisable in a Mercury retrograde. Actually, what we could be doing is maybe considering the details, maybe double, triple checking the details. That would be a really good use of Mercury retrograde energy on, things like agreements, contracts, starting anything that's requiring sort of editing, reading, finalizing, signing, anything like that. We want to just check and double check and maybe triple check even the details, make sure we've really crossed our T's and dotted our I's. But it's not to say, life doesn't go on. We don't want to be gripped by fear. We want to move forward, and it's a really good message for just taking more careful consideration perhaps with some of the day-to-day things that we come across. It's a great time for retrospection, as I was saying, introspection, and also particularly this Mercury retrograde is in the area of Capricorn, in the zodiac sign of Capricorn. So what that means is it's a really good time for introspection upon Capricorn themes, such as areas of practicality. It's an earth element, so areas of resources, potentially finance, but not just finance, sort of all of our earthly resources. And also really, it's a great time to review goals, plans, ambitions. Capricorn's very ambitious. And so we can really, again, work with this really review energy. I think it's a wonderful time being at the end of the year to really look at our review of our, life plans, goals, what we want to, what's worked really well and what we'd like to expand upon in 2024. Now, with Mercury being retrograde, it will also go back into the sign of Sagittarius at a certain point throughout this retrograde, because it's almost moving backwards. It appears to move backwards, which is why we have this overall impact and theme of slowing down. When Mercury goes backwards into Sagittarius, we leave the Capricorn themes of practicality and the earthly realms and go into the more adventurous side of the fire element of Sag. And we're in Sagittarius season, as we've discussed in previous weeks. The Sun is in Sag and Mars is still in Sag. And when Mercury goes back in retrograde into Sag, we will have that fire element. So we could see this dance between our mental processes of it'd be a great time to balance the practicalities of Mercury in Capricorn with the adventurous, expansive, goal setting, jet setting sometimes of Sagittarius. So we have that little flavour kind of cropping in there as well. What's really lovely about this Mercury retrograde is also, having said all of that about introspection, we've actually got a trine from Mercury to Jupiter on the 18th. Now that energy is already building, but it goes exact. So a trine is a relationship between the planets that's in a positive flow. It's sort of represented as a triangular angle. And that is really super for flow and ease in those areas, the synergy of those planets together combining in that relationship in a trine makes for a favourable aspect in the middle of this Mercury retrograde. So whilst we have these, areas of communication and planning and things that we want to take more care and consider over, what we've got is a little gift within that on the 18th to, that's actually a really good time for communication. So the 18th gives us a bit of a lift actually in terms of the retrograde energy. It gives us a great time for expansion and finding solutions, because Mercury, as we've said, is about the communication, it's about thoughts, plans, ideas, and that trining Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion. Again, it's adventure, it's optimism, it's also very much a lucky energy. It has a touch of luck with it, does Jupiter. And it's great for finding solutions. So if there's something that you, wanting to find solutions with, or wanting a fresh kind of expansive touch of luck on this week, amongst the Mercury retrograde, then the 18th is a really lovely energy to do so. And as I say, that energy is already peaking. It's building up now and it will go exact then, and the residue of that will still be felt for a few days after. So if you really want to utilize your dates this week, that's a lovely one for bringing that expansion to all your endeavors of communication and planning. We've also got a really good time for, as we said, a reconsideration of our healing processes. So if we want to look at astrology on a really deep level, we can use it for our sort of spiritual and personal development and growth. And so, as I touched on earlier, anything that comes up during this time is a real opportunity for perhaps another layer of healing, another layer of sort of wisdom and experience that we can put to things coming up again. Sometimes it can feel a bit like, I think we can all do this, the human mind can think, oh, not this again, or oh, it's that topic or that issue is coming back up for me. And for me, Mercury retrograde is a really lovely time for looking at it in terms of what else it's trying to show us on a deeper level to serve us ultimately to move forward and grow. So that's the main themes of astrology this week. We're going to have a song now. What was really lovely actually was when I was researching songs to use for the theme, because one of the really lovely things about KindaSound and the authenticity of the station is there's no agenda with the songs. We get to the presenters and the guests that come on, we choose the music, and that's really special and lovely, I think, for radio at the moment, at this current time. And so I was researching songs for Mercury retrograde, and not very successfully, because there was quite a bit, there's not a huge amount about Mercury retrograde itself, and what I could find was quite negative. So what was really lovely is it led me on to Freddie Mercury, of course, and Radio Gaga. And it's completely perfect because radio itself is very Mercurian. And here we are talking about Mercury. But the song Radio Gaga, one of the interpretations I came across was actually that radio was so special to Freddie Mercury because it had been like a friend to him through some difficult teenage years. And some of the lyrics of the song will make sense. That was one interpretation I came across, and when you listen, you'll understand why. And he was talking about almost the gift of radio, which I really loved. This, it was, the wisdom of radio, the friend that it was to him. And I could really get a sense, and for my sense, certainly one of the lovely things about KindaSound that we're doing here is, tuning into different people's wisdom. And and I got that real sense from this interpretation and he was saying it was sort of radio was dying out in the making space for television and the more aesthetics and the visual element. And actually I thought it was a real sort of tribute to radio and very linked to Mercury to have that beautiful song, an oldie but a goodie, I think, from Queen and Freddie Mercury, Radio Gaga. And we've got our lovely Django, our tech guy, again, very Mercury stuff with our tech guy, amazing Django in the background. So thank you so much for playing that all for us now, Django.
KindaSound Radio, the station for a global community.
Welcome back to the KindaSound astrology update. And Django and I were just having a bit of a laugh in the background then, because Django, being our tech guy, of course, we'd be lost without. But he, is dealing with this stuff on a daily basis. But Django, you said you did notice the Mercury retrograde energy, didn't you?
Absolutely. I noticed it big time last week. And even leading up to last week, just random tech troubles that I couldn't explain.
Bless you. Yeah, absolutely. And it's fascinating because the Mercury retrograde has a shadow period of a few weeks either side. So although it's stationed retrograde on the 13th, you would have been talking there about the week before. So in that shadow energy is still quite peaking, quite powerful.
Yeah, I heard so. I even looked it up because I was curious. I was like, oh, it's supposed to only start next week. And then someone said, yes, there's definitely a pre-retrograde or something that they were calling it that they feel as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, good old Mercury. So it's an interesting one. We don't want to shoot the messenger because Mercury is very much the messenger of the gods, and we're going to talk about Mercury in a little depth now as the topic today. It's very fitting. So the messenger of the gods. The interesting thing is we can have these setbacks and these delays, as we were discussing. It's very fitting. It's sort of as within, so without, and as above, so below. And we see this real reflection with the universe. And Mercury's deemed a bit of a trickster as well. So it's almost like the cosmos has a sense of humour, maybe not always to us, but that is one of his energies for sure in terms of Mercury. And again, also just in terms of the actual kind of qualities of Mercury as well, because we've been talking about the retrograde energy, but actually Mercury as in terms of the energy influences, it's the messenger of the zodiac. It's all about talking, speaking, communication, our mental processes, our ideas, how we converse with others, but both verbally and non-verbally. And so, in this sense, we can see truth is truth. We don't shoot the messenger because it's very human for us to sort of label things as good and bad. And we're in this human experience. So of course we're going to, and, we're up against it day to day with different challenges and then good spells, and we have this sort of sense, but ultimately truth is truth. And Mercury's here to, be the messenger of the gods, really, so to speak. So Mercury as a planet, so it rules the signs of Gemini, depicted by the twins, and very much a talkative sign of the zodiac. Very much Gemini is known for its, talkative nature, very quick energy, quick-witted, sociable. It's a social butterfly, really, flitting around at dinner parties, chatting, mingling. It's very Gemini energy and Mercury energy as well. And Mercury also rules the sign of Virgo as well. But in terms of Gemini, I'll just give you a personal example. So I've got planets in Gemini, I've got Mercury in Gemini, and I've got the North Node in Gemini. So it's absolutely really aligned for me that I'd be involved in a speaking role. Radio is very Mercurian. So, like, it's not something I had realized about myself or had, massively planned, but actually the astrology has unfolded as so aligned. So it's interesting how we see these things. Mercury also rules travel and technology, those areas. And so we can see why, when the planet is in retrograde in a slowing down, almost backwards fashion, those are the areas that are hit, our communication, as we were saying. But again, very surface level. So if we're talking about the messenger of the gods, we're thinking about truth and communication. So getting deeper on that is a super time for reflection, journaling, all of those things that we mentioned. Mercury is the planet closest to the sun, so it's deemed, or it appears as, it's always very close to the sun. So again, that gives us a sense that it's really one of the close planets is very influential to us. The sun is our life force. So when we've got a planet close to the sun, and when other planets transit or move close to the sun, we have these big influences. So Mercury is a key influencer for us. And it changes zodiac signs every 3-ish weeks. Every 3 or so weeks, it changes zodiac signs. And as I mentioned earlier, it's in retrograde 3 times a year. And so it's just, fitting and very synchronous that it's retrograde at this time, at a great time to review your 2023 before charging ahead with all the goodness that you want to see in your 2024. So I think it's a really lovely time for astrology at the moment. Certainly enjoy the 18th and the energy of the trine with Jupiter. That is a lovely placement for Mercury and our communication, and again, finding solutions. So really enjoy that lift. And we're going to have another song, and we're going to close today with the lovely Tracy Chapman and Talking About a Revolution. And I just thought this was really fitting because she's not only, talking about spreading the message, sharing the word on some, really hard issues. All of her music is like that, isn't it? It's fantastic around real, deep and poignant issues. And she's been a huge advocate in, sharing a message for different groups of people, and I think that's really, really powerful. And it's very Mercurian as well, talking about a revolution. And again, I felt that was something that is a real blessing of the KindaSound energy, because it's positive media and it's change, and there's a lot of other stuff out there, and what we're doing here is bringing authenticity and something different from mainstream, and certainly from negative agenda. There's none of that. And to me, this is a really powerful and important, and again, very timely with the astrology, the energy of KindaSound, and I'm really behind it. So we're going to finish today. Thank you for listening. We'll be back again next Friday at 10. Replayed Saturday at 10, available as a podcast from the Tuesday on Apple, Spotify, and the KindaSound website, kindasound.org. And it's been a pleasure talking with you today about Mercury. Enjoy Tracy Chapman, and Django's going to play this for us now. Thank you, Django.